Okay, let's unpack this. Forget Main Street branches for a second, because the surprising new battleground for financial institutions, it isn't about physical real estate anymore. It's right here, literally in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
Specifically, the financial app sitting on your smartphone screen.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how quickly that fundamental shift has happened. I mean, for decades, competition was all about location, branch convenience,
Right.
ATM networks, things you could physically touch.
Very tangible things.
Exactly. Now, the real fight is, well, it's for that digital space. It's about the user's attention and their loyalty within their mobile banking experience.
Absolutely. And that seismic shift is exactly what we're diving deep into today. We've pulled together insights from quite a stack of source material.
Yeah.
It's centered around an article from UXDA called Financial UX, the Key to Your Next Win. But we're also grounding that with supporting research from Quanti, EPAMA, McKinsey, GitNux, Oracle, and Futurist. Quite a list.
That's a solid base. It paints a pretty clear picture of the current landscape, I'd imagine.
It really does. So our mission today is to extract the absolute most important nuggets from all these sources. We need to understand why user experience, or UX, in digital banking has, exploded past being just a nice-to-have design thing. It's now a critical business strategy, like for survival and growth, looking ahead to 2025 and, well, far beyond. So the big question for you listening is, what does all of this mean for your primary banking app experience?
That's where it all lands, isn't it? Because for the vast majority of people, the main connection point with their bank, it's not stepping into a branch anymore.
No.
It's tapping that icon on their phone screen multiple times a day, maybe multiple times a week.
Right. The material we looked at really emphasizes how the smartphone icon has basically taken over from the physical branch. People expect 24/7 access, instant convenience, and they absolutely do not want to wait for things that, should be simple.
And the sheer scale of this shift is, well, it's staggering when you look at the data. Qantas research is pretty remarkable. They're predicting that by the end of 2024, a colossal 3.6 billion people globally would be using mobile banking apps.
3.6 billion, wow.
Think about that jump up from 2.7 billion just 4 years earlier, back in 2020.
That's not just growth, that's an explosion. It fundamentally means mobile banking isn't a niche channel or an alternative anymore.
No, it's the norm.
It is the main way people bank. So if your bank's mobile experience isn't stellar, it's not just suboptimal, you're actively losing ground. Big time.
And this pattern, it isn't unique to finance, right? The sources draw these really sharp parallels to how digitally native superior user experiences have already completely disrupted established industries before.
Oh, I love these examples. They make it so clear. Netflix didn't just offer movies. They offered a fundamentally more convenient on-demand experience.
Exactly.
That basically made Blockbuster obsolete.
Precisely. Or look at the iPhone overtaking Nokia and BlackBerry. They rethought the mobile experience from the ground up.
Right.
Google didn't win just because of search quality, necessarily, but the clean, fast user interface was huge. Zoom replacing Skype with a simpler, more reliable connection.
Yeah, Zoom just worked.
Uber totally upended taxis. Amazon remade retail. iTunes and Spotify did the same for music. In every single one of these cases, the winner wasn't the one with the oldest history or the biggest infrastructure in the old way.
Yeah.
It was the one that delivered a more compelling, frictionless, user-first digital platform. And finance, it's right in the crosshairs of that same dynamic now.
Which leads us to this really intriguing concept introduced in the UXDA article, dopamine banking.
Ah, yes.
What exactly is that, and why does it matter in finance? It sounds like something you might not immediately associate with banking.
It does sound a bit unusual, yeah. But it's about deliberately designing the banking experience to feel, well, inherently rewarding for the user.
Rewarding.
It's leveraging the psychology of small, positive interactions. Things like celebrating when you hit a savings goal, maybe with a little animation or message.
Okay.
Or making a complex task, like setting up a recurring payment, feel surprisingly smooth and easy. Or even just providing clear visual cues that show you're making progress toward a financial target, like a progress bar filling up.
So it's less about just getting the transaction done and more about making the process feel good, maybe even, dare I say, enjoyable.
Exactly. Those micro moments of positive reinforcement, those feelings of accomplishment or progress, they help build a stronger, almost emotional connection with the bank's brand and its digital product. It encourages users to keep coming back and actively engage with the app beyond just checking their balance.
That makes sense. But isn't there a potential downside here? Couldn't that feel a bit manipulative, maybe, if it's not done carefully?
That's a really critical point, and the sources do touch on it. The key is that it absolutely has to be tied to genuine user progress and value.
Right. Real achievement.
Exactly. It's celebrating a real savings milestone, you said, not trying to trick someone into signing up for an unnecessary feature. Done right, it's about motivating positive financial behavior and making the necessary tasks less stressful, more positive. It's not about creating addiction or some kind of artificial engagement.
Got it. Okay. So it's about using design and interaction to make the user feel good about their real-world financial actions. But speaking of the foundation, trust is still paramount in banking, isn't it? That hasn't changed.
Absolutely. Trust is everything. EPAM research, for instance, shows that 63% of people choose their primary bank based on trust. But here's where the sources provide that critical distinction.
Okay.
This trust isn't only about security and reputation in the traditional sense anymore. Increasingly, it's built and reinforced through consistently meaningful, standout digital experiences.
So just having a banking app that lets you check your balance and transfer money isn't enough. You can't just take your old services and make them work on a phone.
No, definitely not. You can't just digitize the old way of doing things.
Yeah.
You have to fundamentally revolutionize the experience.
Revolutionize how?
Well, the material highlights examples like offering real-time financial insights tailored specifically to your spending habits.
Personalization.
Exactly. Or sending proactive alerts about potential savings opportunities you might be missing. Or seamlessly integrating with other digital tools you already use for budgeting or payments.
Okay.
When an app consistently provides that kind of value and simplifies your financial life in these smart ways, it stops being just a utility. It starts feeling more like a trusted guide, maybe even a companion.
And the brand's personality, the design, the tone of voice, that all contributes to building that trust in the digital space too, right?
It absolutely does. Everything the user sees and interacts with in the app, it all needs to tell an authentic brand story.
Like the look and feel.
Yeah, the visual design, the way information is presented, the language used in notifications, even customer support messages. It all needs to align with the brand's values and resonate genuinely with the user. That consistency, that authenticity, it's vital for building deep digital trust.
Okay, connecting back to value, the sources really lean into the power of using technology. Things like AI, machine learning, using that to elevate the user experience.
Yeah, this is where banks can move beyond just generic features to truly intelligent, personalized value. McKinsey reported back in 2022 that companies leveraging AI-driven personalization saw some really significant boosts.
Like what?
Like up to a 15% increase in customer engagement and a substantial 10–20% rise in cross-sell revenue. Offering the same generic thing to everyone just doesn't cut it anymore when the tech exists to provide tailored insights and experiences.
So it's not about cluttering the app with every possible feature under the sun.
No, definitely not.
It's about using technology smartly to deliver the right information and the right options at the right time, specifically for you.
Precisely. And this is where that dopamine banking idea comes back in again, you see. Technology can personalize those celebratory moments we talked about.
Yeah. But
making them feel genuinely relevant to your specific financial journey, your goals. It reinforces that positive progress in a way that doesn't feel generic or, well, manipulative.
And that sense of authenticity seems absolutely crucial. The sources are pretty blunt about it. Customers are incredibly sensitive to inauthenticity or feeling, nickel and dimed in the digital space.
They absolutely are. Look, the era of hidden charges and trying to profit from user confusion or inertia, it's rapidly ending.
Good.
Customers expect honest, transparent value delivered upfront. If you provide that, they reward you with loyalty. If you don't, they walk. It's becoming that simple.
It really sounds like being a partner who helps them succeed, not just a provider of basic services.
Right. And that partnership feeling, it's built on consistency. Every single digital touch point, from the moment you onboard to a push notification to an in-app support chat, it all needs to reinforce that positive, trustworthy brand image. The app needs to feel like a reliable companion.
But the pace of innovation in fintech, it's relentless. How can traditional institutions possibly keep up when these agile startups are constantly pushing the boundaries?
That's a huge challenge. They have to embrace a mindset of rapid, continuous evolution. The sources really highlight that speed and adaptability are paramount now.
Meaning
Meaning you have to constantly experiment with new features, actively listen to user feedback, Really listen, and then rapidly iterate and improve the UX based on that. If a feature or a flow isn't working, you need the ability to quickly fix it or replace it.
Because the digital native competitors, they aren't weighed down by legacy systems or, slow bureaucratic processes.
Exactly. They can pivot on a dime. And customers, remember, their expectations are being set by companies like Google and Amazon and Netflix. They expect that kind of speed and responsiveness from all their digital services, and that includes banking. If you move too slowly, you just get left behind. Simple as that.
So bringing those threads together then, the dopamine banking, the strong digital branding, the smart use of tech, how do they really combine to elevate the experience beyond just basic functionality?
It's about layering those psychological motivators and those emotional connections onto a foundation of solid digital brand identity and smart technology. Think about those tiny moments of digital delight.
Like what?
Like a really smooth animation confirming a transfer, or a progress bar visually filling up as you get closer to a savings goal, or even just a little well-done message popping up. Those small things, they create positive feelings directly linked to the bank's brand, right there in the user's mind.
So instead of just seeing like $500 added to savings, maybe seeing something like, awesome, you're now one step closer to your trip to Hawaii, or whatever.
Exactly. That's personalized digital storytelling.
Right.
It taps into the user's actual goals and creates an emotional resonance that just, generic notifications can't possibly match. Even things like optional community features, letting users maybe share progress on savings goals or compare habits anonymously that can build a sense of connection and encourage deeper engagement too.
There's a quote in the sources that really drives this home for me. It says, "These days, your financial brand is only as good as your digital product."
It's a powerful truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
It completely reframes the whole idea of banking brand identity for the digital age. Just having a strong reputation built over decades isn't enough anymore if your app constantly frustrates or alienates users. The digital experience is the brand now for many people.
And that frustration is costing banks dearly. The sources make it abundantly clear that good enough UX isn't just inconvenient for users, it's a significant business risk for the banks themselves.
It truly is. Look, get this. The statistics on customer switching are pretty striking. GetNuck's research for 2025 indicates that 70%, 70, of banking customers would consider switching banks just for better service.
70%.
And a massive 48%, nearly half, would leave specifically because of poor digital experiences.
Wow. Nearly half your customer base could walk away just because the app is clunky or confusing.
And it gets even more alarming, actually. Oracle's data states that 89% of customers would switch after just one poor experience.
One.
And Futurist's 2024 report found 70% are likely, or very likely, to switch purely for a more reliable mobile app. These aren't edge cases we're talking about. This is the mainstream expectation now.
So many traditional banks are literally bleeding customers because their digital experience just isn't meeting modern expectations. Is that the gist?
That's a key takeaway from the source material, yes.
Yeah.
They point to things like outdated underlying technology.
Legacy systems.
Right. And a focus on reactive UX fixes, polishing the interface here and there rather than addressing the deeper problems, like inefficient internal processes or outdated policies that are reflected in the digital workflow, or just a lack of a clear strategic digital vision. They're essentially patching symptoms instead of curing the disease.
While the digital native neobanks, they started with a blank slate. They built frictionless, user-first experiences from day one.
Exactly. And that fundamental difference in approach is creating this widening gap. And it's an incredibly costly gap for the traditional institutions. McKinsey's 2023 research provides some pretty concrete financial proof here.
Okay, numbers.
Organizations that improve their customer experience, or CX, by just 20% saw a tangible 5–10% boost in their share of customer wallet.
That's significant.
And get this, CX leaders achieved more than double the revenue growth compared to the institutions lagging behind on experience.
Wow, more than double the growth just by getting the experience right. That's hard to ignore.
It really is. And the flip side is the cost of losing customers. The sources estimate that each percentage point of customer attrition can translate into millions of dollars in lost annual revenue. This isn't some minor operational detail. It's a core driver of financial performance.
Okay, so how does investing in UX actually translate into that kind of financial impact? What's the ripple effect across the business? Break that down a bit.
Yeah, the material connects it clearly to several key business outcomes. It starts right at the beginning, with acquisition.
Getting new customers.
Exactly. A smooth, intuitive onboarding process means higher conversion rates. Think about it. A long, confusing account opening form on your phone, that's a massive barrier. It sends potential customers straight to a competitor's easier process.
Yeah, nobody wants to fill out 10 screens of tiny boxes on their phone just to open a savings account. I'd give up.
Right. Then, once you've actually acquired them, there's engagement. The app needs to be truly intuitive for everyday stuff, paying bills, making transfers, managing cards. If it's confusing or takes way too many steps, users just won't engage deeply.
Makes sense.
And then you lose opportunities for cross-selling or upselling other products they might actually need and benefit from.
Right. If it's hard to do the simple stuff, I'm definitely not going to start exploring more complex features like investments or loans in the app.
Precisely. And that leads directly to retention, keeping the customers you have. Digital frustration is highlighted again and again in the sources as the #1 cause of account closures.
#1. Wow.
But on the other hand, those positive, rewarding micro interactions and a consistently helpful digital experience, they build loyalty. They make customers less likely to look elsewhere, even if a competitor pops up offering slightly better rates.
So it's creating digital loyalty, not just relying on price sensitivity.
Increasingly, yes.
Yeah.
And that builds naturally into customer lifetime value, or CLV. The emotional bonds and the positive habits created by excellent UX and strong digital branding mean customers stay longer, they tend to use more products over time, and they might even become advocates for your bank. That increases their value to the bank significantly over their entire lifetime as a customer.
Okay, acquisition, engagement, retention, lifetime value. What else?
And finally, competitive differentiation. In a market where, let's be honest, core banking products and rates can often feel pretty similar between banks.
Yeah, fairly commoditized sometimes.
Right. The ease of use, the helpfulness of the insights provided in the app, the overall feeling of digital delight that can be the deciding factor when a customer chooses one bank over another. Great UX makes you stand out from the crowd. It becomes your differentiator.
So it's really not just one isolated thing, like the look of the app. It impacts the entire customer journey, from the moment they first consider your bank to how they interact with you daily to whether they stick around for years.
Exactly. It's woven through everything.
And the sources are very clear that this isn't just the job of the design team working in a silo somewhere.
Oh, not at all. That's a critical point. This has to be a fundamental business strategy, and it absolutely must be driven from the top, from leadership.
What does that look like?
Well, the material outlines key leadership responsibilities. Things like allocating serious resources, time, money, people to the digital experience, forcing real cross-functional collaboration between design, tech, product, marketing, operations, getting them all talking and working together towards the same UX goals.
Breaking down silos.
Yes, and using data constantly. Not just collecting it, but using it to understand user behavior, identify pain points, and make informed decisions about improvements.
It sounds like it requires a real cultural mindset shift within the bank, doesn't it? Actually seeing UX and UI as core business drivers, not just, pretty pictures or aesthetics.
Absolutely. That shift is crucial. And committing to continuous improvement. You're never really done with digital experience. You have to be testing, learning, and adapting constantly based on how real users are interacting with your product in the wild.
So the goal then is really bridging those design efforts directly to measurable business goals, making that connection explicit.
That's the crucial link the sources emphasize again and again. Design choices shouldn't be arbitrary or just based on trends. They must be rooted in actual user needs and observed behaviors, and they must align clearly with specific business objectives.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Like making a common self-service task, say, reporting a lost card, incredibly easy and fast to do within the app. That isn't just good design, it's a business strategy to reduce costly calls to the support center.
Right. Saves money, improves experience.
Exactly. Or making opening a new savings account take literally seconds, not minutes, through the app. That's a direct strategy to boost deposit acquisition.
So every design choice, ideally, should serve both the user's needs and a tangible business outcome.
Precisely. And then using principles like dopamine banking within that framework, again, not to manipulate, but to genuinely motivate positive financial habits and make necessary interactions less painful, maybe even rewarding. There's another great quote from the sources. People are loyal to the experience, not just the brand.
That really captures it.
It captures the core challenge and the opportunity for banks today.
And let's be honest, our expectations for what makes a good digital experience aren't even set by other banks half the time, are they? They're set by the giants of the tech world.
Absolutely. We expect Amazon's convenience and one-click ordering. We expect Netflix's personalization and recommendations. We expect Apple's intuitive design, Google's speed.
Yeah.
Customers bring those exact same high expectations to their banking apps. And if your bank fails to deliver a similar level of seamless, on-demand, personalized interaction, well, you're not just disappointing them.
You're actively giving them a reason to switch.
You are. You're eroding trust, you're damaging your hard-won reputation, and ultimately, you're losing revenue. It's that direct.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive then, the core message we're really extracting from all these different sources seems pretty undeniable. UX in digital banking is radically more important than many traditional institutions have historically treated it.
It's absolutely central. It's no longer just a design function tacked on at the end. It's fundamental to business strategy. It's how you differentiate your brand in a really crowded market. And frankly, it's becoming existential for survival.
Existential, that's a strong word.
But I think it's accurate. Get the experience right, and you build deep loyalty. You drive financial growth. Get it wrong, and those nimble competitors we talked about, they are ready and waiting to win over your most valuable customers purely on the strength of a superior experience delivered through that little screen in their hand.
It really does change the way you look at that little bank icon on your phone screen, doesn't it? So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Given how absolutely critical this digital user experience is now, arguably the primary way you interact with your money day to day, what does your personal experience with your primary bank's app tell you about their readiness and likelihood of winning in this new landscape? Something to think about.